When you think of a transplant operation, you probably picture a team of surgeons carefully stitching in a new heart, liver, or kidney. But what many people don't realize is that anesthesiologists are the ones responsible for keeping both the patient and the new organ alive and healthy. From preparing the patient before surgery, to keeping all of their vital systems balanced and stable during the transplant, and even making sure the new organ works properly afterward, anesthesia is a constant, invisible presence that makes the whole process possible. I'm Dr. Daniel Medell, an anesthesiologist, and in this video, we'll talk about how we prepare for a transplant, what happens during the operation, what challenges we face, how we care for organ donors, and what happens in the recovery period. Let's check it out. Transplant anesthesia is like no other kind of anesthesia. These surgeries are long, complex, and often involve patients who are already very sick. For example, someone waiting for a liver transplant may have major heart or kidney problems, issues with blood clotting, or low blood pressure. That means the anesthesia plan has to be tailored to each person. Anesthesiologists don't just put people to sleep. We carefully control blood pressure, oxygen levels, temperature, and blood chemistry so the body and the new organ can survive the enormous stress of surgery. What a lot of people don't think about, though, is that anesthesiologists also care for organ donors. In cases where a person donates organs after death, the anesthesia and critical care teams help keep the organs healthy until they can be transplanted. For living donors, those are people who give a kidney or part of their liver while they're still alive, anesthesia ensures that they stay completely safe and comfortable during their operation. So while the surgeon replaces the organ, the anesthesiologist keeps everything else in balance, minute by minute. For transplant patients, anesthesia starts long before the day of surgery. These are not simple cases. Sometimes the anesthesiologist meets with the patient weeks or months in advance to try and understand their specific health problems and prepare an anesthetic plan. We'll check how well the heart and lungs are working, how the kidneys are functioning, whether the blood clots normally, and what medications the patient's taking. For example, people with liver failure often can't process drugs normally, so doses need to be adjusted very carefully. This preparation phase is one of the most important parts of the whole process. The better the patient is optimized before surgery, the smoother the transplant will go. That means ensuring that their fluid balance, nutrition, and blood tests are all as stable as possible. For living donors, there's a separate anesthesia plan focused on safety. These people are healthy, so every detail must be designed to minimize risk. We don't want a poorly designed anesthetic plan to risk harming the donor organs in any way. These operations are done with the same level of precision and care as any surgery. Basically, transplant anesthesia is a team effort. Surgeons, anesthesiologists, critical care doctors, nurses, and pharmacists all work together to create the best possible plan before the first incision is even made. Now let's fast forward to the day of surgery. Once the patient is asleep and monitors are in place, the anesthesiologist begins one of the most delicate balancing acts in medicine. Let's break it down into 4 steps: putting the patient to sleep, removing the old organ, connecting the new organ, and waking the patient up. Step 1. Putting the patient to sleep and starting surgery. When anesthesia begins, the patient's body may already be fragile. Oftentimes their blood pressure is unstable and one or more of their organs aren't working properly. The anesthesia team uses special monitoring equipment to track every heartbeat, breath, and blood oxygen and CO2 levels in real time. Unlike most regular surgeries, transplant patients often need multiple IV lines, an arterial line to track blood pressure beat by beat, and sometimes advanced cardiac monitoring, like a continuous heart ultrasound, so that we can watch blood flow closely. Step 2. Removing the old organ. During this phase, the anesthesiologist helps the body's systems remain stable while the diseased organ is being removed. In a liver transplant, for example, this part is especially challenging. Removing the old liver can cause major changes in blood pressure and chemistry. Another issue is that, obviously, we don't want blood spilling out everywhere, so before removing the old organ, the surgeons clamp off the arteries and veins that connect to it. This clamping means that the blood is no longer going through that organ, and again, we often see changes in blood pressure and chemistry. We have to monitor everything and constantly adjust fluids, medications, and body temperature in order to keep the patient safe. Step 3. Connecting the new organ. Once the new organ is attached, it's time to reperfuse it. That means that those clamps are removed from the arteries and veins, and the recipient's blood starts flowing into the new organ. This moment can cause dramatic changes in the body because the new organ releases stored metabolites that can suddenly drop blood pressure or cause irregular heartbeats, called arrhythmias. Our job is to continuously manage this transition and try to keep everything under control. Step 4. Finishing up and moving to recovery. After the surgery comes to an end, our focus shifts to waking the patient up safely and getting them to the intensive care unit. The anesthesia team helps manage pain, makes sure breathing is steady, and continues to monitor the function of the new organ. These operations can last anywhere from a few hours to over a dozen, and throughout the entire thing there's an anesthesia provider right there in the room, because every second matters in cases like this. Now I'm going to quickly go through how anesthesia might be different for kidney, liver, and pancreas transplants. First, kidney transplants. Kidney transplants are the most common type. Recipients often have kidney failure and may be on dialysis, have fluid volume shifts, and electrolyte abnormalities like hyperkalemia and acidosis. All that means that their body handles fluids and medications differently. The anesthesia team has to make sure the new kidney gets plenty of blood flow once it's connected, without flooding the body with too much fluid. So careful fluid balance is everything in kidney transplants. Next, liver transplants. These are among the most demanding and complex surgeries for anesthesia. The liver controls blood clotting, metabolism, and detoxification, so when it fails, the entire body feels the effects. During the transplant, the patient may lose large amounts of blood, and their blood pressure can swing dramatically. We often have to use advanced tools to guide fluids, blood chemistry, and transfusions. For example, we might use transesophageal echocardiograms, invasive arterial lines, central venous pressure monitors, thromboelastograms, and sometimes even pulmonary artery catheters to manage these complex problems. Now for pancreas transplants. These are often done in people with diabetes and vascular disease, which add their own layers of complexity. For example, patients with diabetes often have autonomic neuropathy, which can cause gastroparesis. That's when the stomach is slow to empty its contents into the small intestine, and that increases the risk of aspiration, which is when all that acidic junk in the stomach comes up and then trickles down into the lungs. Also, since the pancreas is responsible for insulin production, blood sugar levels can swing rapidly as the new organ starts receiving blood flow. The anesthesia team has to monitor glucose levels continuously and adjust insulin or fluid levels to keep everything stable. Each organ brings its own challenges, but in every case, anesthesia is the invisible link that keeps the surgery safe and the new organ alive. When talking about organ transplants, we tend to focus mostly on recipients, but donors are just as important. In fact, the quality of the donor's care can make or break the success of the transplant. For living donors, the anesthesia team's top priority is safety. We ensure the donor stays completely comfortable, stable, and free from complications during and after surgery. For example, in a kidney donation, we carefully control blood pressure and fluids so the remaining kidney continues to function correctly. For deceased donors, the situation is different. Once a person has been declared brain dead, the medical team still has to maintain blood flow and oxygen to the organs until they can be removed. The anesthesia and critical care teams work together to keep those organs healthy, sometimes for many hours. If blood pressure drops or oxygen levels fall, those organs might become unusable, which is obviously a nightmare for the recipient. So donor management is often a race against time, and since organ procurement often happens on short notice and at all hours, an anesthesiologist is usually on call 24/7, ready to join that race. Once the transplant is complete, anesthesia's role continues in the recovery room and ICU. The patient may stay on a ventilator for a short time while their body stabilizes. The anesthesiologist helps manage pain, monitors for bleeding, and watches how well the new organ is working. For kidney transplants, the first sign of success is often urine output. For liver transplants, doctors look for improvements in blood clotting and lab tests. Anesthesia's careful management during surgery, from fluid balance to blood pressure, directly affects how well that new organ performs afterward. The team also helps coordinate with the ICU and transplant doctors to make sure medications for pain control, blood pressure, and immunosuppression don't interfere with each other. In short, our job doesn't end when the surgery does. It continues through the most critical hours of recovery. So what's the overall message here? Well, anesthesia isn't just about putting patients to sleep. It's about keeping them alive and stable during one of the most important moments of their life, when they're being given a new organ and another chance to live. Anesthesiologists are there before, during, and after surgery, monitoring, adjusting, and protecting both the patient and the new organ every step of the way. Thanks for watching, guys. If you learned something new about how anesthesia supports organ transplants, let me know in the comments, and share this video with someone in your life who's curious about medicine. Got a question or topic you'd like me to cover? Maybe anesthesia for heart surgery, pediatric transplants, or what happens during brain surgery? Drop it down below. I love hearing your ideas. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.